Hello everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Gaming in the Wild podcast, a video games podcast about games from the creative, artistic, and often, but not this week, independently produced side of the spectrum. Today we're going to talk about a game that was first released in 2017. It was a PlayStation 4 release title and exclusive called Horizon Zero Dawn. I came into this game on a recommendation from a friend with no big expectations really. I knew that it was an open world game and that it was a sci-fi setting, post-apocalyptic setting, and that the game had, much like Breath of the Wild, which came out the same year, a very well-developed wilderness environment in which it takes place. And I'm a big fan of that. Like a lot of games that I really enjoy have spectacular settings, well realized settings. Like I really enjoyed Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, in which you basically walk around the countryside trying to solve a sci-fi mystery. Breath of the Wild, obviously, like the wilderness and the environment are the star of the show in that game, much more so than the plotline or the combat or anything like that. And the way Horizon Zero Dawn looks is the first thing that you'll probably notice about it. It's a beautiful game. It really does set a benchmark for how good console games can look. You start in a forest environment as a young outcast of a tribe called the Nora, and they live in a place called the Embrace. That's a protected valley, full of trees and streams and mountains, pathways. And as you wander around this game, you're very quickly struck by just the sheer beauty of it. The way that the wind makes the red reeds ripple, and how every leaf on the tree seems to move in a really natural seeming rhythm. There's a wildlife everywhere, like rabbits hop out across the path in front of your feet. The light is dynamic and changes, like when it rains you get a very diffused light. When it snows, the snow gathers on the ground, the flakes blow around in the wind. It's really just, you can completely forget what you're doing in this game when it comes to missions and storyline and so forth, and just walk around in sheer amazement at the achievement of this game environment. It's really spectacular, hypnotic and engrossing in its own right. But while the environment is stunning, the game has an awful lot to offer on a lot of different fronts. It's a heavily story-led game with a great narrative. That's told in cutscenes. Like the first couple of hours are very plot-heavy and cutscene heavy. We begin as Aloy, as a child, and she goes through some difficult, formative experiences, and learns the ways of the wild with her mentor, Rust. And as we go through these first lessons of life, we quickly become very attached to Aloy in a way that feels quite unique, even for a very story-led game. She's a really amazing creation as character. She's maybe the most human-feeling character that I can remember in a game. When she's a child, in one of the earliest sequences, we run through a series of caves, and I was just gobsmacked by how amazing Aloy is. The character's obviously modelled on a real human, because like when she goes upstairs, she'll scramble with her hands. When she reaches the edge of something, she'll kind of gain her balance with her arms in a way that really catches your attention. It's a very human-seeming creation, Aloy. when she becomes older and the game begins proper, it's no different. Aloy kind of talks to herself and narrates the game with you. She notices things in the environment and looks around, so when she looks down to the right, you know there's something down there, so you really do feel like you're almost in collaboration with Aloy as you come through the game, and in company. And the details are amazing. Like, Aloy has long red hair, and as she runs along with a very human-seeming gait, her hair kind of bounces around and her clothes kind of catch the breeze. And it's really easy to get hypnotized by Aloy herself. And this goes past the way that Aloy looks and behaves, and through to her character too. She's looking for answers as to why she was cast out from the tribe, who she really is, and what's really going on in this world of hers. Because during all this talk of trees and rippling leaves and blowing hair, I may have forgotten to mention that this beautiful wilderness is also very dangerous, because for some reason it's completely infested with deadly robotic animals. And this leads on to the main gameplay mechanics of the Horizon Zero Dawn, which are, you wander the world between quest points, exploring. You can go off-piste as much as you like and just run around checking things out. But you are on a journey of self-discovery and also discovery of the world around you. You're trying to untangle the mysteries of who you are, what happened to this world, and how those two things are interconnected. You'll encounter these robot creatures, some of which are like horses. They're kind of wiry, metallic, and they have lights for eyes, and some of them are like deer or gazelle. Some of them are bigger, like big cats. Anything bigger than the raccoons and rabbits and boar that you can hunt has basically been replaced by robots. And they are aggressive when disturbed, so you'll spend a lot of time creeping around, crouching, trying to be quiet. You can take them out with your bow and arrow or your spear. And as you progress through the game, you can improve your combat skills by leveling up with new abilities like slow motion concentration for your bow and arrow, a silent strike. So the combat is very satisfying and complex. You'll use a mixture of stealth and laying traps, planning, using environmental features like sniping from somewhere they can't get to you. And you kind of creep through the world carefully, out of necessity really. You can only take a couple hits. So Aloy feels human on that scale as well as being human in appearance and character. You feel fragile as you move through this world, and you have to be careful. You can't just go charging in, and it all helps to increase the bond that you have with the character as the story unfolds. I haven't finished the game as I make this podcast. I think I'm about 60% of the way through it. I've had a few revelations, I've been exploring, and I've been really enjoying the world building in this game. There's kind of parallel stories, there's kind of the tribal story of what humanity has become since the evident apocalypse. And then there's also the story of the ancient history of how it all came to be, what happened in the previous iteration of humanity, our time basically. And it's a very well-constructed world. Aloy has something called a focus. It's like a piece of lost technology that she finds in the opening sequence of the game. And she can scan the environment with it, finding bits and pieces of technology, scanning for robots so that she knows to avoid them or how to plan her attacks, or wildlife that she can then hunt. And it also allows her to access pieces of old technology that she'll find to pick up little memory capsules, bits of audio, bits of text that you can read, holograms that replay moments in history, and it all lends itself to a really cohesive and detailed world that really helps the story come to life. And the way that the world is constructed is like a balancing act between different stories of the past of humanity and the present of humanity. And I assume by the end where everything's headed next. So that's Horizon Zero Dawn. I'm having an amazing time with this game. It feels like, as much as I want to be careful not to have just a recency bias where I'm in love with everything I'm playing, this feels like a really special game to me. It's an accomplishment of world design, world building, writing, characterization, visually, sonically, musically. It's a full package of a game. It's a story, it's a landscape, it's a tangible world with its own history and heritage and culture and with its own problems. And it's an open world game that belongs with some of the monoliths of this genre. It definitely draws on the latter day Assassin's Creeds and on Skyrim and on these kind of games that almost everyone has played by now, but it seems to manage to distill the essence of what's good about these games into something that's very slick, very evocative, and it's a pleasure to play. Like traversing the landscape is pretty much always a pleasure. There's some jumping into stuff that you can't get onto that's a little bit annoying, but it's a minor flaw. I think that this game is a contemporary classic, and whilst it may have been a little bit overshadowed by Breath of the Wild, understandably, because that's a really phenomenal game too, it belongs in that company. I encourage you to play it if you have a PS4. I would even say that it's worth the price of the PS4 to play this game. I think I'm 50 hours into it. I've been avoiding the main story because I don't want it to end. I've been just running around doing side quests, exploring the landscape, and leveling up, and kind of talking to everyone that I can, and kind of want the game to keep going, which is really the sign of a total success of a game. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. You can follow the show on Twitter at Gaming in the Wild. You can follow on Instagram. I have a gaming Instagram that's at John Reviews Switch, where I do tweet-length reviews of Switch games. The show is on most podcast providers now, I think. I'm still waiting for the Google Podcasts link to go live, but hopefully that will happen soon. We'll have another episode for you next week. Take care, and thanks for listening.